Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Samantha, and this is On the Hill, where we talk all things biblical womanhood, homemaking, femininity, inner healing, and just overall intentional living. And on today, we are going to go a little bit further along our cycle syncing series. So if you have not checked out the first video that talks about what is cycle syncing, more of an intro video, then I would encourage you to go back on my channel or look in the description box. I will link it below. But on today's video, we're going to actually start going through the 4 phases of the cycle. So today we're going to talk about the menstrual cycle, or your period. So when it comes to the series, I'm not going to go too much into depth as far as the science behind what is happening in your body. If you don't know, I have a book out called Cycle Syncing One-on-One for beginners that are interested in learning more about cycle syncing, how to understand how their body responds to the different phases of your menstrual cycle that you will experience throughout the month. So if you want more information as far as the science behind what is happening in your body and just more support overall, definitely check out the ebook. There's also a digital and a physical tracker that you can utilize as well as you're becoming more in tune with your body and as you are really expanding and elevating as a feminine woman. So check that out. It will be in the description box. But let's talk about the menstrual cycle. So the thing about the different phases, or the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle, again, it is your menstrual. So again, menstrual is kind of like the umbrella, right? Menstrual is the 4 phases that you will experience overall, but menstrual is also the term that you can use for your period. So menstrual, period, time of bleed, whatever you want to call it, it is one of the phases of your cycle. So when you think about the different phases, how we like to better explain it is that the different phases also resemble a different season, right? So the menstrual is like your inner winter. Think about the winter season. When you think about the follicular phase, which is a phase after your menstrual, after you have finished your period, that's like the spring season. And then your ovulatory phase is more like the summer, where you're feeling good, you're feeling hot, bothered, whatever it is, girl. Right? And then your luteal phase, which is that phase before your period comes, where you're feeling a little more moody, you don't really want to be bothered, all of that stuff, is like the fall, autumn phase, right? So keep that in mind, right? But today, again, we're going to talk about the menstrual, the period, that inner winter season. So when you think about winter, right? Think about what comes to mind when winter happens, right? Winter, you are doing more of the cozy things. You're staying in a little bit more, probably isolating a little bit more. You're retrieving to spend time with yourself. Maybe you're cozied up watching a movie. You're doing a lot more self-care, taking care of your skin, moisturizing your skin, I hope. Okay, because we ain't got time for ashiness, right? You're moisturizing your hair, like you're doing more of those things, right? It's a time to slow down. It's a time to focus on self-care. It's a time to drink those soups and the teas to really nourish your body, right? It's the same thing with your menstrual cycle or your period. This is a time to really reflect, retrieve if you can. I'm a mom of 3. So I get it. It's but so much retrieving we can do, because we gotta live, right? We still have husbands, we have children, we have school, we have work, we have all of the things, right? And so the idea of cycle syncing, and it's not to say like your whole life just has to stop because you're on your period, right? Like that's not realistic. That's not the society or culture that we live in, right? But the idea is just saying like, you know what? Let me understand what's happening in my body during this phase, and what are some small changes that I can begin to make to support my body. Again, we want to work with our body and not against it. I tell my coaching clients this all the time, but as a birth doula, when I work with my clients that are preparing for birth, we talk about labor and the aspect of labor of a contraction coming, right? Contractions are what we like to call waves in the birth field, right? And when you think about a wave, it goes up and then it comes down, and it goes up and it comes down, right? And so I tell my clients, my doula clients, like, hey, when that contraction comes, we're going to ride the wave, right? And when you think about a wave, you don't just want to crash into a wave, right? You ride it, right? Ride it. You gently ride it, right? So it's the same thing when it comes to the different phases of our cycle. We want to learn how to ride those waves. Because again, as we talked about in the first video, the intro video to this series, that's exactly what's happening in our bodies throughout the month. We are experiencing waves, right? And we will better experience and be more effective when it comes to understanding these waves if we truly learn how to ride them and work in unity with them and not against it, right? So again, when it comes to the menstrual, when it comes to your period, this is a time to retrieve, right? Biblically, and y'all know this is a biblically based channel, right? Biblically, when a woman was on her period in the Bible, it was a time of uncleanliness. This was a time where she would retrieve. This is a time where she would withdraw, right? And it's so funny. I say this all the time, but that was in the Bible, right? That's how women in the Bible days lived. In the Hebrew culture, they retrieved, they withdrew, right? Because they were considered to be unclean, right? And people get all in a frenzy like, oh my God, you're saying women are unclean. Okay, like, let's look at just look at like the principle behind it, because I think it's beautiful. Like, when you really understand like cycle syncing and the woman's body and what's happening during that time when she's on her period, you can actually come to like respect it, right? The fact that during this time a woman would retrieve, she would isolate, she was getting pampered, like she was taking care of herself because she was considered to be unclean. I think it's beautiful. And this is why, because here we are centuries later, right? And science is telling us, based on this concept of cycle syncing, that when a woman is on her period, it is best for her to retrieve. And I say this all the time. Y'all hear me say this all the time. Science is talking about, or is just now proving, what the Most High had already established in His Word, right? Because when we think about it, what are we going through when we're on our period? There's a lot going on in our bodies. We're losing a lot of minerals, right? And so I feel like the Father in His love is like, you know what, daughter? You had a lot going on during this time. So let's be real. Like, the blood that we, like, it is unclean. It is unclean. Same reason why you go to the doctor. When they're drawing your blood, are they just touching you, or do they put gloves on? Why do they put gloves on? Because to come in contact with blood is unclean. It's like contamination happens that way, right? We also have to keep in mind that back in Bible days, they didn't have all the tools and resources, pads, all those things that we have now, right? They didn't have all of that. So literally when they sat on the surface, they were bleeding, right? So it did become unclean, right? But like, beyond that, like, the Father in His love, to understand like our design and the beauty in our bodies, to say, you got a lot going on in this time, and I love you so much that I want you to steal time away. Go rest. Go take care of yourself. It's like the Sabbath. People kick against the Sabbath all the time, but it's like, when you really understand the Sabbath, right? The Bible says 6 days you work. On the seventh day, just rest. That's not bondage. Some people look at certain things in the Bible as bondage. It's not bondage, right? And you know how it's not bondage? Because so many of us are burnt out, stressed out. And then when we go to the doctor and we tell them what's going on, or we go to the therapist and we talk to them, you know what they tell us to do? They tell you to have a self-care day where you don't work. You know what that self-care day really is? It's a Sabbath. It's so funny how the Father established so many things at creation, right? Like in the Bible days. And it's so funny if we would just come to understand and yield to it, and not yield to it from the stance of like, oh, it's bondage, but like understanding like His heart, and that everything that He does and establishes in His Word is love. You would learn to see things differently. And so again, when it comes to that menstrual cycle, let's get back on track, because I'll go, right? This is a time to retrieve, rest, right? In the cycle syncing ebook, I actually give you some recommendations on foods, right? Your body, you're bleeding out. You're losing a lot of minerals. You're losing a lot. So this is a time to really replenish your body, right? This is a time to drink your red juices, like your beet. I love to make this beet lemonade, right? Like, make it fun. Find different recipes to really replenish and nourish your body. This is a time to lean into your soups and your teas, right? Some of the other things that you could be doing during the time of your period is really like pamper yourself, cozy up, watch your favorite movies, take your time. Like, if you can alter your schedule, which is something that I've been doing because I work from home, I've been really trying to alter my schedule to where I am not as busy during the time of my period. Right? Like, I really try to retrieve as much as possible. My husband is aware. It's so funny. Like, the cycle syncing ebook, like, let the man in your life read it too. My husband read it. He actually helped me edit it, like, as far as grammar and all of that stuff. And he like walked away and was like, man, I learned so much about your body. He was like, I learned so much. And it's so funny because now he understands the different phases of my cycle, and he knows how to support me. He understands how to support me because he has knowledge and understanding of what my body is going through during that phase of my cycle. So share it with the men in your life. Share it with the people in your life. When you understand what's happening with your body, you can then help other people show up for you better and in a way that you need them to show up for you, right? But again, your menstrual, time to rest. This ain't time to be lifting weights in the gym. Go for nature walks. Stretch. Sit out in the sun. Get you a heating pad, put it on your stomach, especially if you struggle with cramps. Get a heating pad, literally lay in the sun. I'm not saying to get a tan or anything. We don't need no tans and stuff like that. But get you a little mat, lay out in the sun a little bit. Maybe not directly, but especially your abdomen area. If you can expose your abdomen area to a little bit of sun, that helps. It's like a natural heating pad for your body. All right, just sit out in the sun a little bit more. Whatever you were going to do inside, go outside and do it. If you're going to do a little bit of work, if you have to get some work done, go outside. Right? Like, this is a time to really connect with yourself. It's a time to connect with the Father. It's a time to reflect. And if you're like me, I feel like a lot of stuff comes up for me when I'm on my period. I don't know what it is. That luteal phase, which is the phase right before my period, and like my period, I go to like really deep places. And again, I said this in the intro video, a lot of us probably think we're depressed. You might not even be depressed. You might be, maybe you struggle with that, but you might not even be depressed. It might just be the fact that you're in your luteal phase going into your period, right? And your hormones are dropping. And this is the time where a lot comes up for me. And another thing I give in the ebook are some journal prompts, like some really reflective, inner healing, deep journal prompts that get you to ask yourself some questions. Like, man, like think about what's happening with your body. Your body is releasing a lot of minerals. It's cleaning itself out. So this is a time for me. I don't know what it is, but it's like my life starts to like line up and sync with the different phases I'm experiencing throughout the month, right? Because it's like I go to these deep places every time. Since I have really like learned about cycle syncing and really learned about being a cyclic woman and a cyclic being, right? Which means that like we experience phases and cycles and how to really work in tune with those cycles and those phases. I feel like my life literally like lines up with it. And I just find myself in these really deep and reflective places emotionally and mentally during that time of the month. So like really going to that place and like sitting with the Father, like, God, what are you showing me about myself? What in my life right now is considered to be unclean? What is not serving me? What's not serving you? What is not pleasing to you in my life? Show me those things. Show me those things. And it's funny because like I use that time, like again, it's kind of like baptism, right? Baptism, you know, it's an outward reflection of what's going on inwardly. And your period, it can be used in the same way. It's an outward reflection. It's cleaning itself. It's an outward reflection of what is going on inwardly. And so I connect that spiritually. I'm like, God, show me what is not pleasing to you in this season of my life. And show me what I need to do to not only allow you to purge me and clean me, but to replenish me, right? Because again, during your period, you should be replenishing your body, replenishing through soups, teas, your water, adding a little bit of minerals to your water, really replenishing your body, y'all. I'm telling you, when you learn more about what is happening in your body and you can, again, work in tune with it and not against it, it is a game changer for you as a feminine woman. It is a game changer. Right? If you have not checked out the Cycle Syncing 101 ebook for beginners, check it out. I'm telling you, it goes a little bit more in depth, or so much more in depth. It's like almost 50 pages. It goes really in depth, but it's a really good, easy read for you, right? That just expands on this idea a little bit more. And there are biblical connections in there for my girls that are like wanting to make sure that they're keeping everything biblical and have a biblical foundation. There are biblical connections. And one of the things that I did in the ebook was, as I said in the beginning, each phase of your cycle can be related to a different season. So again, your menstrual or your period is like an inner winter. I also created archetypes for each phase that's connected to a different woman in the Bible. It is so dope, y'all. I'm telling you, go check out the ebook, right? If you have any questions, drop it in the comment section. Like this, subscribe this, share this video with another sister that needs to become more in tune with herself as a feminine woman. And I hope you guys stay tuned for the rest of this series. Let me know if you have any questions.